I'd like to call to order the special meeting of the Mercer County Board of Education. Mr. Booher, roll call, please.
Good evening. District 1, Amber Franceschi.
Here.
District 2, Larry Gay.
Here.
District 3, Billy Montgomery.
Here.
District 4, Cliff Pruitt. Here. District 5, Randy Phillips.
Here. Pledge of allegiance, sir.
Yeah, so tonight we've got third grader Charlie Ryan Smith going to lead us in our pledge. So if everyone would please stand and join us in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I please have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make the motion.
Mrs. Franceschi makes the motion. May I have a second, please? Second. Mr. Montgomery, second. All in favor? Recognitions, Mr. Booher.
So Ms. Franceschi is going to give these certificates, and we got framed certificates and stickers for the parents. My child is a Superior Titan Award winner. To be a Superior Titan Award winner, you've got to have a few things for the last month, the month of November. You have to have perfect attendance during the month, completed all homework assignments and tests. You have to have passing grades, of course, no discipline issues, demonstrates great leadership skills, and exhibits a winning attitude and spirit towards learning and peers. And it's called the Dairy Queen, the Superior Titan Award, because Dairy Queen has partnered with us, and the great thing about it, the kids love, is they win a free Blizzard of their choice at Dairy Queen. So I'll run to the schools tomorrow and present them with a card of that in front of their classmates at school tomorrow. So our first Superior Titan Award winner for last month from the elementary school is first grader Silas Baker. So Silas, come on up. Congratulations, Silas. From the intermediate school, our Dairy Queen Superior Titan Award winner is third grader Charlie Rhinesmith. Congratulations, Charlie. From King Middle School, our 8th grade recipient is Delaney Holden. And under the weather tonight, if you can't be with us, we'll recognize him at the next board meeting. Is also a student board member, and that's senior Luke Whiteneck. So let's give him a hand. Yes. So Mr. Burns.
Just a minute.
Okay.
Hello, I am a 4th grade teacher at Mercer County Intermediate School and I'm also the treasurer of the Mercer County Education Association, which is a division of the KEA. We have decided to spotlight a teacher each month that is a member of the MCEA, and this month our focus is on a teacher at Mercer County Intermediate School. This month we'd like to spotlight Tracy Fraley. Unfortunately, Ms. Fraley could not be here this evening, but Ms. Fraley has been working for Mercer County Schools for 4 years and has been teaching for 12. Her husband is a member of the Division of Forestry, and she has 2 students that are Mercer County Titans. And we will be giving her swag certificate tomorrow.
Okay. We're going to take a short break. If anyone who would like to, there's a backdrop in the back. Feel free to go back there right now and take some pictures. After that, you're free to go. If you want to stay around for the board meeting, you certainly can, but we'll take a 5-minute recess for y'all. Thanks for picking. We will continue on with the rest of our board meeting. Right now is our chance for public participation pursuant to board policy 01.421. Persons wishing to address the board must first be recognized by the chairperson and stand behind the podium. An individual or group granted the privilege of being heard must give his or her name, address, and reason for speaking. The chairperson may rule relevant to the topic of the board's agenda and will set the time limit to 3 minutes, but not to exceed 15 minutes. The board will only act or respond on items that's on the published agenda. If you wish to have an item placed on the agenda, you must meet first with the superintendent. At this time, the board will receive comments from the public. First up, the only person we have signed tonight will be Matthew Miller.
I want to start out by just emphasizing that y'all should probably reword that policy since it is infringing on constitutional rights, which y'all have a letter I sent you all about that. But I wanted to touch on a couple of things that I had brought up the last meeting. I had a little bit of time. I still got a little bit of work to do. But your all books that you have in these schools, I requested all 4 lists of books from all the libraries. And, just a handful of them I found the following: massive amounts of curse words, which I wanted to, read some of the passages, but obviously we got children here, so I won't do so. Discussions of orgies, sexual intercourse, and transhumanism. So parents, if you're listening, if you want these lists of books, I got them. There's some pretty graphic material in there that these elementary and middle schoolers are getting, as well as the high schoolers. Also wanted to bring up a recent incident that I tried to address, and it seems like it's getting brushed under the table. I had, what was his name? Mr. Tatum, who is the high school principal, had sent him an email in regards to an issue where a kid had drawn something inappropriate on another child's books. And when the teacher had saw it, instead of addressing the issue, he decided to go over there, look at the image, which y'all will probably get what I'm trying to get at. And he looks at the kid that drew it and decided to make a comment of, well, that's about the size for you. So, pretty inappropriate. And don't start smiling, Mr. Brewer, because I watch you. Every time I push this information out, you think this is funny. I'm not kidding. All of this information I put out has been verifiable. And not one time has anybody ever told me, hey, your information's incorrect. Or, hey, where's your lawyer at and why aren't y'all doing anything there if I'm defaming or slandering this board's name? So, ease up with the smiling. I appreciate it. From there, so I sent that email, and then you decided to respond back to me, which I was trying to address it with the principal. And then, of course, you and I have had it out numerous times for probably about 1.5 years, almost 2 years now. You all have lost my confidence, plain and simple, across the entire board. With that being said, your response doesn't sit right with me. And your last response, when I did a follow-up with Mr. Tatum and he refused to respond back to me and decided to push everything to you, was, and I quote, "We always look into and address issues, if need be, as they arise. Public schools do not release confidential student and or personnel disciplinary records to the public." I agree on the child aspect, but here's one thing. Everybody that works for the school system is on taxpayers' dollar. Okay, if there is information that's being requested by the individual, I understand no social security numbers, no birth dates, no addresses, stuff like that. Cool. But here's the thing. I want to know if y'all are actually handling the situation, because I feel like just like everything else I brought up, it's just being swept under the rug. So I'll be requesting that here soon enough, and y'all can do as you see fit, and it'll escalate if it needs to. And then last but not least, I'm going to hit the COVID thing again, because we're having an issue here recently. I know Boyle County shut their schools down a few weeks ago. We've had attendance issues here, and I keep trying to tell you all that there is a connection there. I don't care what anybody chooses in their own life, but you all push this. You all advertise this stuff. And now we're starting to see the consequences and the results of it. Now we've got sicknesses going through the roof. But the question is where are these sicknesses coming from? All right? My data that I pushed to all of you all has shown that there was something that needed to be dug up deeper behind the whole vaccination thing. And everybody just, everybody's afraid of the elephant in the room. Well, I'm sorry, like I said, I don't judge anyone based off of their individual decision, but when you all force this stuff, that's where I drew the line, especially the masking. So as these sicknesses rise, just remember what happened last time with the masking. I don't think we need to go down that road again. Along with the COVID, I have talked to the local health department, and I'm just waiting for a response from them. I sent them some information. Maybe we can tackle this, come up with a better understanding, or maybe I can let the professionals, the medical professionals, handle this. Because I've tried to address it. I've tried to protect people. I've tried to disseminate the information so everybody can discern for themselves. And yet, you all's excuse was always, well, policy says. Well, policy doesn't trump law. Policy doesn't trump Constitution. So just keep that in mind. And here's one other fact I wanted to just throw out there. It's funny that 2 years ago, flu was non-existent. Never had a problem with it. Actually, it wasn't even in the statistics. The media wasn't covering it. And then all of a sudden this year, we're having a massive amounts of flu. It's amazing how that's just all coming back. But my question is where's all that sickness coming from? So I think we need to start looking at this as a collective, or better yet, I'll talk to you all. We should be looking at this as a collective, since they just won't keep rushing under the road. That's all I got. Thank you.
Up next, we'll have our reports, Finance Officer's Report. Amber Lynn.
Okay, this is the recap for November 2022. Our ending general fund cash balance was $7.06 million, as opposed to $7.41 million last year at the same time. Our overall revenue was down 1% compared to the prior year, and the receipts received in the year were 9% lower. The district has received 57.8% of the revenue that we budgeted for the year, and we are 41.7% through the year as of November, so that suggests that we will receive more than what we budgeted. On the expense side, those are up 8% compared to the prior year at the same time. Expenses in November were $1.75 million. The district has expended or encumbered 33.1% of the expenses that were budgeted, and that also suggests that we will spend less at this point by the end of the year if nothing else comes up that's unforeseen at this time. Any questions? Thank you.
Looks good, Amy. Thank you. Up next, our attendance enrollment report. Esther Hazen.
Good evening. As Mr. Miller mentioned, attendance has been down, and we've had a lot of sickness and a lot of illness across the district. So you can see that month 4 was lower than we like it, obviously. But our buildings are implementing, our cleaning regimen and trying to increase processes in order to keep students and staff as healthy as possible. But for month 4, it looks like that we're going to, go with a strong 90% for the high school, and we're glad to have that 90. So hopefully we are seeing things on the upswing at the moment, but we'll just have to. This year's going to be a different year for us. So.
Well, I was fixing to ask, do you see any incline yet?
A little bit, we're seeing, it's better than it has been, a couple weeks ago, but I think they're still saying that we're still, possibly, RSV, flu, strep. We've got a lot of it running around at the moment. So.
I remember a lot of years past when we had to close the gate on the flu, so
Yeah.
we had to shut down. So hopefully we'll come with that.
Well, and we've had lots of those conversations, and I think we were really used to that 95% attendance rate, and so this is making, I think, everyone, myself included, uneasy, but it is just a different year, and so we're just doing the best we can, and the nurses are busy, and grateful to have those people on staff to help us keep healthy. So.
We're almost to the end, so.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of
Christmas break, yeah.
There's a lot of school districts that would trade us their attendance in the state of Kentucky right now for what we've got. So it's a statewide trend.
Thank you, Esther. Personnel report, I think everyone's had a chance to look at that, so if you want to peruse that for a second. All private confidential additional information. So, moving on, we will have Stephanie Abel from White & Company, the results of our audit.
Good evening. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here. As you can see from your printed copy of your report, we've got about 88 pages in front of you, and I could talk for a long, long time and go through most of those pages, but we're going to try to hit the highlights and not take up too much of your time, but still give you some information and some input and the results of the audit as well. So, I want to start with the independent auditor's report that you've got on your screen. And that is page 1 for us. It's about the 4th page as you flip past your table of contents. This is an unmodified opinion, which is the opinion that you want to have. That is the clean opinion. For those of you that have been around a year or two, if you pulled this opinion out and compared it to prior years, it does look a little bit different. And that's because guidance and things are updated and wordings are updated accordingly and whatnot. But it is still a clean, unmodified opinion. Pages 4 through 10, I will not spend much time on. Mrs. Minor will tell you that they're her favorite pages in the audit report, because these are pages that she is extremely significant in putting together. Basically, we get her a draft of the audit report, and then she prepares management's discussion analysis, and then we get to check it. The reason that I point these out is they are a great synopsis and great summary view of the entire report, minus the opinions. So if you're looking at numbers, or you need a quick summary, or you need something that's a little bit shorter to read than all 88 pages, that's your best reference point to go through there. Okay. And then I'm going to go to page 11, which is your statement of net position or balance sheet. And when I speak, I'm going to look at your totals column on the right. You're going to add 3 when you're looking at that PDF. I'm going to give her just a second to catch up there, just so it'll. Perfect. Okay. So total cash and cash equivalents as of June 30, 2022. Remember, I'm going back in time a few months, so everything I'm looking at is from June 30, 2022. So numbers that Amber gave you just a few minutes ago, of course, are subsequent to that and more recent. Total cash $8.1 million. As of June 30, 2022, that was up about $1.3 million from the prior year. As you come down, you've got non-current assets, and you say, what's that mean? That's your land and your building and your equipment and whatnot, less accumulated depreciation, so less that use of them over time, of $48.2 million. That's down about $1.4 million, okay? And that just means that depreciation was more than your fixed asset purchases during the year ended June 30, 2022. Some construction stuff was just getting underway. We do have some construction in progress there, about $300,000 spent, with most of that being on baseball soccer complex work that was beginning, but not yet complete. And you likely think have probably done some other things since then, so those numbers are going to go up during FY23. Okay. Then you see total assets and deferred outflows of about $61.6 million. Okay. I'm going to come on down to total liabilities, $44.4 million, down about $6.56 million from the year before, which is a huge decrease. Some of that is you paying on your regular debt and your bonds. The other part of that decrease is that net pension and net OPEB liability, which is the district's underfunded portion, and this is all required implementation a few years ago to put in. Those numbers for the year ended June 30, 2021 dropped about $3.6 million. What they run about a year behind, you have to pick them up. The reason I'm talking about it is because you've got that huge significant decrease there, and I want you to know part of it's bond and your debt payments, and then part of it is just a reduction in that liability. I also will tell you that I think it will inverse next year because the market did not do so hot, as many of you know. And so where it runs a year behind, I feel like we're gonna see an increase again. We won't know that until those state reports come out, but I'm expecting to see almost a quarter of an increase just because of the poor market conditions over the last year. All right, page 12. If any of you have any questions too, feel free to interrupt me. Doesn't bother me at all. Is your statement of activities, or sideways income statement as I affectionately call it, very technical term there. If you look in the first column, you see your total expenses, okay? This includes depreciation on your fixed assets, does not include those fixed asset purchases. Okay, there's several other adjustments in those, but that's the two biggies. But total expenses of $37.3 million, up about $1.5 million from the year before, okay? Total revenues is a number that you can't find on there because you have to add about 4 spots to get to it. But your total revenue was right at $40 million, and this is district-wide, not just the general fund, which was down about $100,000 from the year before, okay? So you put all that together and you say, what's it mean? The biggest number that I look at for districts, there's 2 numbers, and this is one of them, the change in net position, or essentially profit, in that far right column of $2.7 million, okay? So very successful financial year for the district as a whole when you put all of those funds together, including those restrictions, okay? All right. Page 13, and then page 15, I will talk about a little bit together. These are your fund financial statements, which correspond essentially directly to the financial statements that you would see from Amber. Because those munis reports and whatnot, those expenditures and whatnot correspond directly to these. They don't have all the pension, they don't have all the fixed assets accounted for directly, but these line up essentially with those monthly financials that you're used to seeing, okay? On page 15, here's the other number I look at a lot, is we say, what did the general fund do? Because for a district. And for Mercer, for the year ended 6/30/2022, we've got a positive net change in fund balance of $444,000, which is a really strong, good year. And we like to see that. Like to see those increases when you can, because that means that you're increasing your unrestricted balance, basically, and your funds available in your district to carry over to the next year. And that usually means that you're managing those funds within that general fund very well. Okay. Gonna flip on to page 17. And you guys have a new enterprise fund, whether you know it or not, because you started a daycare fund. And so your daycare after-school services become its own proprietary fund. So you have a new column on this page compared to last year that you not had, at least in our time with Mercer. I don't know if there was one many years ago, but you'd have to go back quite some time to see that. Gonna flip on to page 18, okay, and talk about 2 things. One, your food service fund had another outstanding year. You've got an income before capital contributions there of $680,000, okay? And then right beside it, you see this loss of $174,000 for your daycare fund, and you look at me and you go, there's no way we lost that much money in our daycare fund. And you did, okay? It's not a cash loss. Because daycare is proprietary and because you move some salaries over to that daycare fund, that means that net pension and that net OPEB, that underfunded liability for those folks, moves with them to that fund. And that's required reporting. It's not something that's optional. It's not something we can opt out of. so that you wouldn't have to show that. The point being is that Amber can get you some numbers about where your daycare fund stood on a cash basis and whatnot, and it did not have that kind of decrease, okay? So I want to make sure that you know that. So it's not really that we've got $170-some thousand of cash going out. That is not the case at all. Does that make sense? All right. We are going to get to skip several pages. And I am going to be on page 31, which is probably 34 or 5 on that PDF. I'm going to let her get there just a... Oh, yep, that one. Right there. And I point this out, this is a note that covers your long-term liabilities or your debt. I actually have had board members call, had a couple superintendents call with questions later on, particularly if they're looking at construction, if they're talking, when this pension topic was really being circulated in media and whatnot, that would come up and folks actually called and said, what's that for us? How do I find that? Do you have something on that in there? Can you point me to it? And so I point this out only because this note shows those increases and decreases, okay? But the top line is your revenue bonds payable, okay? And shows that you paid off $2.5 million in debt last year, left you with $25.8 million. And then as you come on down, you see the different categories and whatnot there. We're going to flip on to page 33. And this is another more detailed note that I won't tell you a whole lot about, except that this lines out some of those fixed asset and building changes. And so if you look back and you say, okay, well, what all did we actually do during that year? This kind of gives you a synopsis of that. And then Amber, if you had questions, could help you put, hey, what is it that we actually bought that we put in service there? But that construction in progress, your food service department actually had about $360,000 of capital expenditures. Some of that was, a good bit of that was equipment improvement, kitchen equipment. I know there's some serving lines. I know there's, I believe, some furniture and some schools and some upgrades of seating arrangements and whatnot and stuff there. So can be some useful information for you just as you're looking back at when we last do that. And sometimes that can help give you some insight into that. Okay. All right. Now we're going to skip a whole bunch of pages. I know that disappoints you. And I'm going to be all the way back on 75. And this is a 2-page one, so you'll see it'll open sideways for the paper copy folks. Okay. And this is your schedule of expenditures of federal awards. ESSER funds, COVID funds, and have been significant in districts across the state, not just here by any means, because it's been a significant topic and a significant source of funding for districts. And so these numbers are quite a bit higher for a lot of districts for 21 and 22. We'll probably continue again for 23, and then maybe start to slow down and get some in 24 and 25 unless things change. For the year ended June 30, 2022, you had $6.2 million of federal expenditures. That is down about $334,000 from the prior year, which actually surprised me. So I did a little looking back and was like, wait a minute, why did we go down? There's a lot of pluses and minuses, but a lot of that actually, I look back and your all's food service, if you remember, just did so much feeding of kids and meal distribution through COVID, and so there's actually less food service expenditures expenditures because most of your food service is federally funded, as you probably know, okay? So, but that's down about, $334,000, but $6.2 million is still a significant amount of federal expenditure. We are going to go on to page 77. And this is your schedule of findings and question cost. And you say, what the devil's that mean? When we work on your audit, one of the key areas of focus, there are multiple, but one of the key is those federal expenditures and looking at certain programs. So for the year ended June 30, 2022, we were looking at ESSER expenditures and the special education cluster with a more extensive focus. We do look at a sample. It's not every transaction by any means. But for the sample selected and what we looked at, we had no findings regarding your schedule of federal expenditures. And so that makes this a boring page, but in an easy page to present here. But sometimes, if I have a more difficult presentation than the one tonight, sometimes that's because it's showing up here and we have a finding and I have to tell you guys about what that finding is. But I'm happy to tell you that we don't have any of those. And the next couple parts, because of that, are really easy. There are two more opinions in the back. They start on page 79. And one of those is an opinion in accordance with government auditing standards. The second is in compliance with uniform guidance. Uniform guidance is the rules that govern the federal expenditures and what we use to go by for how to conduct the audit related to those federal expenditures. Government auditing standards and internal controls can cover the gamut of basically anything. Internal control related, system related, personnel related, segregation of duties, all those kinds of things. These both are clean, unmodified opinions and what you want to have, which is also very good. And the last thing that I will tell you is that the very back on page 86 is actually a letter to you all as the board of directors. As part of our concluding, when we conclude an audit, is to report certain matters to you. And so this basically tells you what those matters are. But the key thing is that if we had any trouble with management, if we had any trouble getting information, conducting the audit, anything that could prohibit us basically from conducting the audit the way we feel that we need to do so, we're supposed to let you know that. And if we don't have any of that kind of stuff, so this is just a plain or standard letter to you all, I want to thank Amber and her team, particularly with ESSER. When you start looking at ESSER and individually significant and special ed and all student activity funds and all the other things that, and fixed assets, all the other components that go into making up this audit, I know they get tired of me and my team. I say it jokingly, but I really do, because it's a lot to pull. It's a lot of energy on their part. They are great to work with. They make sure we get what we need. They make sure we get what we need promptly, which is the part that I most appreciate. We just don't have very much lag time in a request and receiving information. And I want to let you guys know that, because I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here, but I'm also very grateful for their team and the work that they do. All right. Anybody have any questions? If you can't sleep one night, you can get it out for you. Thank you guys. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Up next will be our elementary school reports.
Hello, how are you all? I have 5 minutes, so I'm going to try to stay under my 5. At the elementary school, we offer 11 different after-school clubs for our students. We have Speed Stat, Clover Buds, STEAM, Cardio Drumming, Ag, yoga, dance fit, Hope Club, choir, and some more from 4-H. They come into our building and offer those for the students. Mental health is very important, so we make sure every day to offer 30 minutes of social emotional learning for our students. We have Second Steps program through Georgina Brain, our FRC. They bought that for our grant. And we also are a pilot school for Too Good. Too Good for Drugs is a program through New Vista and the Mendez Foundation, and it is provided free of charge to all of our students, K through 2, and our staff, all the materials and training and everything. So we think that we have a good, sound curriculum as far as making sure that our students are prepared for life skills and character building and things like that. To assist us with our wide range of behaviors, because I don't know, after COVID, the behaviors of students is different than it was before. So we revamped our positive behavior intervention and supports, our PBIS program. We tightened up on our school-wide procedures as well as our classroom procedures with our teachers. Our enrichment classes, so we have PE, art, music, library, which is STEAM. Our STEAM is new this year. It is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And she received the $10,000 Corning grant this year to revamp our media center. So if you haven't had a chance to come and look at that, I advise you just to come and kind of take a peek at that. Our specialist teachers do a very good job of collaborating. During Hispanic Heritage Month, Mrs. Zell, our art teacher, did a study on an artist, and the students drew self-portraits. In STEAM, Ms. Tederick had the students make their own paintbrushes and paint their self-portrait. In gym, Coach T taught them dances that went along with Hispanic heritage. And in music, Ms. Patterson taught them music, songs with that. They also collaborated for our Christmas program. So I don't know if you've heard about our Christmas program, but it was the first big program that we had post-COVID. And our gym, which is a pretty good sized gym, could not hold everyone that attended. So they were coming from every door. So next year, we're gonna get with Mr. Tatum to get a date on the gym at the high school so that we can make sure that we have enough room for everyone. But our enrichment classes do a great job of collaborating. In our classrooms, we are focusing on small groups for reading and for math. This allows our students to receive individualized instruction. It also allows our teachers to correct anything that they see immediately with our students. We're also focusing on our district initiatives, clarity of lessons, gradual release, balanced instruction, demonstrating learning, and exposing our students to rich texts. And we monitor all of this through our walkthroughs, and we make sure that we give teachers feedback. We are a targeted support improvement school. Mr. Boomer knew that our SPED department needed help before even our test scores came out. He's been very proactive with that, making us ARC chairs. One of the hardest things I've had to do as a principal was to take on SPED. One of the most eye-opening and most rewarding things I've had to do as a principal is be an ARC chair. So in preparation for that, this summer, all of our staff, SPED staff, and all of our ARC chair people, we went through 12 hours of CKEC training. So we took ARC chairperson training and we took IEP writing training to make sure that we were prepared with what was coming. So making sure that teachers are prepared, making sure that we are prepared, making sure that we are giving our students what they need are a few things that we're doing. Our district initiatives that all of our schools are doing, non-negotiables for co-teaching, PD for the summer, staff meetings for discussion and making sure that everyone's on the same page, reviewing the IEPs to making sure that they are what our students need, and name and claim, high expectations for all students, making sure all teachers have those high expectations for all students for what we're going to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, our intermediate school report.
Brought some friends to help me. Right here, look at
Right here, right here. Cheers, and look at this. There.
Okay, last year, you all approved us becoming a Leader in Me school. We thank you so much for that. So I brought some of our MCIS leaders to show you what we have been learning through this program. Here we have Logan Johnson. Bryson was here, he had to leave. Phoebe Odell, Lyric Sauer, Brennan Spurlock, Sawyer Bryant, Tori Weatherly, Cadence Riley, Tinley Devine, and Charlie Ryan Smith. These students have been nominated by their teachers to come and present to you tonight. You guys ready? Okay, here we go. Ready?
Habit 1, be proactive. I'm in charge of me. Habit 2, begin with the end in mind. Have a plan. Habit 3, put first things first. Work before play. Habit 4, think win-win. I win, you win, we win. Habit 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood. Listen before you speak. Habit 6, synergize. Together it is better. Habit 7, sharpen the saw. Balance is best.
All right, so the 7 habits have been just embedded in everything that we are doing this year. So our first habit is being proactive. So one of the things that we are really focusing on is for students to take responsibility for their actions and for their learning. So in the classroom, they are learning to take responsibility to get their assignments completed, to have positive interactions with their peers and with their teachers. We also are teaching them how to have conversation with adults. When they look at you and say good morning, you say good morning back. When they ask you how you're doing, you respond and then you ask them. And it's amazing just to see that difference in the culture of students actually talking back to the adults. We are also teaching them how to take care of our property. We have blue lines down the hallway and they know those feet are in the blue. Our hands are to ourselves and not on the walls. It's amazing because we're actually taking care of our building now, and it is wonderful to see that they are not tearing things up and just they didn't do it out of meanness or anything, but it was just more of now they're conscious of it. They're conscious of taking care of the things that they have. Also, part of being proactive is when they go out into the community being positive role models and showing the community who we are at MCIS. And I have some amazing stories to tell you. I'm going to make them quick. But our 5th graders went on a field trip to Danville. They went to the Norton Center to watch a play, and then they got to go out to eat at a couple of the fast food restaurants. And so one set of our 5th grade classes actually pooled all of the money that they had left over from their lunch at Fazoli's, wrote thank you notes, and gave it all to the servers at Fazoli's that day. It was over $100 that they gave to them, and we were really proud of them. And that was a student initiative. The teachers did not ask them to do that. On that same day, after school, the manager from Wendy's in Danville made a phone call to me and told me that they had never had students there that acted as politely, patient, and understanding as our students did. So to have someone call us is pretty phenomenal. They all went to the movie theaters today for their PBIS reward, and I had amazing positive feedback saying that they said thank you. They cleaned up after themselves. They did not leave any trash in the theaters. And also, the archery coach over the past weekend said that they were not only wonderful kids in competition, but the way that they responded to the other students that were there and competing against them. He said that he was very impressed with their kindness and the way they interacted. So we are really proud of our students and the way that they are being proactive with their responsibilities and what they have control of. All right, so our second habit is begin with the end in mind. So for us, our end in mind, close the gaps in learning. We want to make sure that we are helping our students overcome everything that happened over COVID. So we are focusing on improving our Tier 1 instruction in our classroom, making sure it is rigorous and on grade level. We are differentiating instruction for all learners, so making sure we're also providing instruction for on or above grade level students so that they also accelerate. And we are using all our data to drive our instruction. We are very focused not only on iReady data, but on our behavior data, the observations of teachers in classrooms. So we are using that as much as we can to drive our instruction. Also, another end in mind that we have is we want to get out of TSI for SPED. That's a huge issue for us. I will 100% agree with what Ms. Johnson said. Becoming ARC chairs has been one of the most difficult, but also one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. I wish I knew all this when I was a teacher. It would have helped me a lot as a gen ed teacher. But anyway, so we have focused a lot already on co-teaching this year. We have brought CKEC in to do trainings for our teachers in co-teaching, and Ms. Carsoner still is coming in and having coaching days with us throughout the year to help us make sure that we are staying on the right track. We are having CKEC come in on January 3rd, our teacher work day, to provide coaching on SDI and tools that we can use to make sure we're providing appropriate SDI for our students, and also making sure that we are providing our students the least restrictive environment, keeping them in that gen ed classroom as much as we can and providing them with exposure to grade level work. Okay, so then number 3 is put first things first. This is probably the language you would hear most often around our building. This is about your priorities and where your priorities lie. You can even walk in the classroom and on the board you might see big rocks and little rocks. And there's a list underneath each one that's for the teachers to communicate with the students. These big rocks are the assignments that you get done first, and then if you're done with those, then you can move on to the little rocks after that. Number 4 is think win-win. With our teachers, we really want our teachers to be able to enjoy what they're teaching. So we really want them to make it their own, bring themselves into the teaching, but we also want to engage students in the learning and help them feel that they are a part of the learning and have investments in that as well. Our 5th habit is seek first to understand and then to be understood. So again, we're focusing on data. What is the data telling us? That data doesn't lie. So with what we're receiving from the students, that's what we're using to help improve our students' learning. 6 is synergize. So we have to focus on our PLCs with our teachers and their lesson planning meetings. We are also trying to get our parents involved on the academic side and getting them to synergize with us and get their students learning at home as well. And finally, sharpen the saw. This is where we get to enjoy what we do and take a break from things. We have Club Fridays, the last Friday of every month, where we stop all academics. Kids are in clubs all day. They have 4 clubs they chose at the beginning of the year. They get to do those all day, and then we have a nice assembly at the end of the day, and that has been the most rewarding thing. We have dance club, we get to play cards, they get to have a trivia club, we have agriculture, we have yoga. We also have after-school clubs, which are agriculture. We have Odyssey of the Mind and AMPS that performs music and song for our school and for our parents. So we are super proud of our MCIS Titan leaders and the way that each is growing as a well-rounded, responsible, respectful, and enthusiastic person. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, King Middle School.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. We do a staff t-shirt every year, and on the back of this year's t-shirt, we had the following phrase that we want all staff and students to try to implement and follow. Learn with passion, act with courage, and change the world. Recently want to give my school a shout out for stepping up and helping a neighboring district in need. Couldn't be more proud of them. It really started with our Red Cross Club. Mr. Boer last year encouraged us to start clubs, and it's been a really neat deal for us. But the Red Cross Club raised over 200 hoodies and coats for Letcher County schools who were inundated by the summer flooding. And I dropped the coats off a few weeks ago, and it's just, some of the flooding there is still, and the destruction is still unbelievable. So super proud of our kids for stepping up, and KASA sponsored the coat drive, and they valued our donation around $78,000. So really, really outstanding job. And so wanted to highlight that for you all tonight. Taking this job a year and a half ago, I had 3 big rocks that I wanted to address, and that is to create a positive school culture where excellence is embraced by all, recruit and retain the most talented educators for our students, and improve the overall physical condition of KMS. And I think that's one of the first things Mr. Boer saw when he stepped into our 1955 building. And I'd like to say, if you haven't been there recently, the new flooring, signs, we have an entrance mural, our cafeteria. It's, I think the school is looking as good as it's looked in a long time. Although we made excellent growth last year and outperformed the state average for all middle schools in 7 out of 9 tested areas, our students with disabilities didn't make the progress we hoped for at KMS. Even before we received our test scores this year, we already put things in place to address the needs that we were aware of. Some of the changes we've recently made that we feel will greatly benefit our students are the following. Staffing. We have more special ed staff this year than we had last year. So our special ed resources have increased. We have 1 special ed teacher on each team, 2 per grade level, and we have a behavior teacher as well that services the entire school. So that's been really good. Chair and ARCs, a lot of credit for Mr. Boer for addressing this. It's been one of the best things I've done. I think it gives you an insight into those students and a schedule that surrounds them, the resources that they need. So chairing ARCs has been excellent. We have an additional school counselor at KMS for a total of 2 to take care of SEL needs and small group counseling. That's been outstanding. We feel that students have greater access to on-grade level material this year with support from a special ed teacher and a regular ed teacher in the same classroom. We've invested heavily in Kagan cooperative learning. We had co-teaching training for all staff last summer and follow-up trainings throughout the year. We have 2 instructional coaches at KMS that we share with the high school. One that focuses on math and one that's a best practice instructional coach. I think Ms. Hale, recently hired, has been an excellent hire by our district and will do an awesome job. And I'd like to also, just listening to our principals talk, I think that's one big area that we're going to exit TSI as well. I think we have the finest principals in the area. And I've been around here for a little while, going on almost 20 years. But I just think they're outstanding building leaders, and Mr. Boer's been outstanding as well. And we have a district mindset of being the best, and that all students can learn, including those with disabilities. So lastly, we are seeing data this year at King that our students with disabilities are making growth towards their goals. It is our hope that this progress continues and we exit TSI status as quickly as possible. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, sir. And up next, senior high school.
Good evening. I gave you all a packet before the meeting started tonight just to kind of highlight some of the snapshots of some of the things that are going on at the high school. This is by no means close to everything that's going on, but this is just some of the things I wanted to talk about tonight. The first item is something new that we started this year. It's called Profile of a Graduate. If you look at that document, it's 2 pages long. This is what we're doing right now. We're in the process of going through all of our seniors. All of our seniors have been divided up amongst the administrators, counselors, and a couple other people to basically help track the progress to make sure that all the requirements for graduation, that we can make sure that we address all the different avenues for post-secondary readiness have been looked at. And when you look at that document, you can see it can be somewhat overwhelming. There are numerous things that we have to track on each individual student. So the goal is that we will have one of these profiles of a graduate for all 4 grade levels. We started with the seniors because that was the most pressing need, but we're going to be working our way down to through all of our students in the high school. The second bullet there is post-secondary readiness, which is a big part of the accountability system. And there are many different ways in which one can become post-secondary ready. It can be done either academically or through the career ready portion. And part of that profile of a graduate page on the back of that second page lists the different ways in which someone can become post-secondary ready. So it's changed dramatically over the last couple of years. You know, from an ACT standpoint, you used to have to meet the benchmarks in English, math, and reading to become what was called academic ready. Now you just have to meet it in one benchmark. So that's just one change, but there have been numerous changes that have happened in the last couple of years. Dual credit opportunities. We have partnered with, of course, Campbellsville University, Murray State University, Bluegrass Community and Technical Colleges, and just this year we have agreed to go into partnership with Eastern Kentucky University, which is going to give our students many more opportunities for dual credit courses. Some of these are online courses, some of them are taught in the school system by our teachers that have been vetted by these universities, and then some of the students actually go to CU Harrisburg in the afternoons and take those classes. But between the scholarships provided by the state, between the work-ready scholarships, and then the board who's agreed to chip in if a student has exhausted all those opportunities to get to 15 hours. You know, I think it's a very realistic goal for all of our students to, when they graduate high school, not only have 15 hours, but potentially many more than 15 hours, which can really give them a head start when they go to college. My middle son actually graduated 2 weeks ago from Eastern a semester early, and that's all because of the different classes that he was able to take while he was in high school, which from a parent standpoint can save a lot of money to get out either a semester early or a year early, depending upon what they can get accomplished in high school. ACT plan. We're continuing to focus on the ACT, even though it's not a major driving force with accountability. It still is important for our students and our families, not only because of the amount of money that can be saved through scholarship opportunities, through KEYS money, but it can also open up the doors into many different universities and colleges, depending upon what a student's plans are when they graduate from high school. So there's a detailed plan in that packet also that shows you what we do at all 4 grade levels in preparation for the ACT. MTSS teams, this is something that was started last year, but it's been kind of fine-tuned a little bit this year. So we have 3 different MTSS teams that all of our teachers serve on one of those 3 teams, whether it be instructional, procedural, or PBIS. This allows our teachers to have teacher voice and also have to have ownership in some of the decisions that are being made at the school level. And it's been a great addition to our school. And like I said, we started that last year, but we're really fine-tuning and implementing a lot of different changes through those teams this school year. Next item is walkthroughs and best practices components. Our goal is to get into the classrooms as much as possible, to see what's going on to help promote the rigor in our classrooms. And what we're looking for is we're looking for clarity, we're looking for rigor, we're looking for a different variety of different types of teaching that's taking place, whether it be modeling, gradual release, looking at great text, writing. So all of those things that is what we look for specifically when we go into a classroom. We have a document that we fill out, it's a Google form that we fill out that tracks the data so we can have an immediate snapshot of what we're seeing in the classroom when an administrator goes into those classrooms. And the last thing is our KSA incentives and rewards. We have put together a student and staff committee to look at different incentives and rewards for our students. We've done a lot of work behind the scenes looking at past years' data, which has been somewhat hard to compile because of with COVID, there were 2 or 3 years there where students were not required to take those assessments, but last year was the first year that they were. So we're having to go back and look at some of the previous years from 2 to 3 years ago to look at the data of the students to see, if a student was, whether they were novice, apprentice, proficient, or distinguished, and kind of correlate that to what their grades are in school to try to figure out, what's driving those students. And, thanks to Mr. Brewer, we were able to take several kids out to reward them for being proficient and distinguished across the board on last year's testing. And we've already heard a lot of feedback from students saying, well, hey, what do I need to do to be able to go on some of those reward trips? So we're really going to focus in on making the students aware of what they need to do. And it's not just becoming proficient and distinguished, because obviously that's where we would want everyone to be. But we have some students that maybe are novice right now that if they can just grow to whether they're apprentice or even proficient, that can make a big difference as well. So we're looking at incentives not just for overall proficiency, but also for student growth in the long run. There's a couple other documents in there, just kind of goes over our accountability scores and our priority plan for the school year. But like I said, that's just kind of the highlights. Like I said, I could probably stand up here and talk for 30 minutes and still not touch everything. But I felt like that was some of the most important things that we have going on right now at the high school. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Good reports by all our principals. I greatly appreciate all your all's hard work. It does not go unnoticed. Mr. Booher, Superintendent's report, sir.
Good evening. Yeah, they did a great job, and we've got a great, like Mr. Bryant said, our principals do a great job of trying to be the very best schools that we can be here at Mercer County. I would like to say this. Throughout my life, especially when I was young, I've learned that life is short. And so one thing I've never been told by anybody is to quit smiling. And one thing people know about Jason Booher is I enjoy life, and I'm going to smile a lot. So I did want to say that. And I also wanted to say that I know the national trend out there is, especially out of the state of Kentucky, the other states, a lot of times you see on the news about library books. I know the library books get attacked a lot. They get a lot of publicity out in the newspapers and news media. But one thing we did here at Mercer County, because I want to make sure that every one of our library books are safe for our kids, is we put every single book, which is 10,000 books in all of our libraries, on our website. So you can go to mercer.kyschools.us, you can go to parents, you can look up each school, you can look up the library books, and then you can go through all of them. I can't read 10,000 books in a year, but what I can do is if anyone will, let me know if there is a book out there that we need to look at, review, and maybe remove. We will remove that thing if it is not any good. I will guarantee that. I have, since I've been here in 18 months as superintendent, I've never had one person tell me one book that we've got bad. I've never got one email, one phone call, anything. But that is out there for all parents, because I read, you look in the news and so forth about library books. You see a lot down in Florida, I believe, getting attacked. But that's why we posted every library book. We generated a document for each school and posted it on our website. So if anybody ever reviews a book in Mercer County schools and it's not any good and appropriate for our kids, we will take it out there. I will promise you that. So I wanted to say that just to address what earlier what we heard from somebody. But then on to the superintendent report. For academics, like Mr. Tatum said, we had 278 kids. And that's our bar now, so we want to beat that next year. We had 278 kids in Mercer County last spring make all proficient and distinguished test scores, or scores on the state assessment. So we couldn't take all 278 at the same time. So the last 3 of the last 4 or 5 school days, we took them down to the new Azuka's Japanese Steakhouse. And so we took the intermediate, then we took the high school, then we took the middle school yesterday. And what was great is, especially when we took the elementary kids last Wednesday, is there was like, I think there was like 80 of them or so, but we were sitting there and I said, okay kids, how many people have never been to Hibachi Steakhouse where they cook the food right? And 80% or more of the kids raised their hands. So I just thought that was great. They really looked fired and seeing all the, the show that they put on. But I thought that was a great reward for our kids. And it also sets the tone for, like Mr. Tatum said, our academics. If we're going to put that number 1 in our school system, then we need to reward those kids just like we do in the arts or athletics especially. But those kids really appreciated that. And I told those kids while they're down there, each group that came in, I said, I also want those kids that are back at the school eating cafeteria lunch, I want them to think, hey, how can I get to go to Hibachi next year with Mr. Booher and the rest of the crew? Because I don't want to be here while they're eating nice steak or chicken dinner down there. So that was a really nice sight to see, is our kids getting to enjoy something, especially a lot of them had never been to a Japanese steakhouse before. So that was 278, so hopefully we'll beat that number next year for all proficient distinguished. Our I-rating winter assessments are completed now, so I know Mr. McAllister and Mr. Anderson, they're breaking down those, and we'll have those to break down, especially when we come back January 3rd for that work day. Our staff will look at those as well. It was exciting. We had our first meeting with the architects and construction managers for our new design phase of the new elementary school. So that was a neat meeting. It was also eye-opening for some parts, but we are going to go up Friday and look at the newest school that Boone County Schools has opened called Steeplechase Elementary. And then we visited Bardstown Elementary, which is elementary school. They just opened a really nice, big elementary school. So we're going to visit both those schools. I've already visited them once, but we're going to take the construction manager, and the architect, and the design team to look at those to get some ideas for our new elementary school as well. So that'll be Friday. We're going up to Boone County for the first half of the day. Our KYA delegation had a successful conference. The Commonwealth bill sponsors were able to have their bill passed in both chambers and signed by the KYA governor. This was a first for our KY delegation. Our Bluegrass bill sponsors also had their bill passed in both chambers and signed by the KY governor. Our entire delegation was also awarded a premier delegation, which is a huge honor for Mercer County Schools. And lastly, Brooklyn Mullins served as the Supreme Court Chief Justice and successfully defended her Supreme Court opinion overturning an executive order by the KY governor based on constitutionality. Brooklyn will be moving on to the National Supreme Court Justice Program. So we'll have those students. We've got a list of about 15 of them that we'll have here at the board meeting, hopefully in January. I told you all last board meeting when we talked about starting our own police department, because I've been here 18 months and we haven't had one person apply for an SRO job because they had to go through the local police department. So as soon as we did that, we're interviewing 3 starting tomorrow for our chief of police, we'll call it, for SRO. So those interviews will begin. We have our new DOSE, Director of Special Education. If you'll stand up, that's Shanna Hale. She's coming to us from a neighboring district, but she is doing a great job already. She's hitting the ground running. It's difficult to come in and when you have all summer to prepare for a new school year, for your first year as a DOSE. It's very, very difficult to come in mid-year, right when we're during Thanksgiving break. But she has done a tremendous job for us, and we appreciate all that you've done for us so far. That's not academic, so in the arts, we've had our winter band concert, middle school and high school. Ms. Ashford did a great job there at the high school with that the other night. And then I also got to see the Titan Singers. They held their winter concert. Ms. Gibbons did a great job with that as well. We had one student, Emily Kurtzinger. She was selected as the KMEA All-State Band for this school year. So congratulations to Emily. I'm sure we'll have her here at the board a little later to be recognized. And in athletics, our girls won the first round last night in the 2A regional tournament. I think that the rest of that tournament's after Christmas break, and then our boys started after Christmas break as well, 1st of January. Our boys and girls are back in action tonight. They're playing a doubleheader tonight at home right now as we speak. And we had our monthly progress monitoring meeting today on the athletic progress project, talking about the baseball, softball, and soccer project. And it's coming along as planned. Luckily, knock on wood, we haven't had too many rain days. I know we have the last week or two, but for the most part, since July, we've had great weather, which has helped keep the schedule, everything on schedule. I believe that's all I've got from the report. It's a full report, so any questions, discussion?
Next will be our consent agenda items. Everyone should have had a chance to look through those. Anything you want to discuss on the consent agenda?
Yes, just real quick, the job description for MSD IA instruction assistant, that is placed on there just to distinguish between a regular instruction assistant. The one that pops out to me is that third bullet down, that MSD instructional assistants have much more responsibilities and specialties that they have to do. And that says there about tube feeding, catheterization, totaling, diapering, feeding, administering medication. There's more things that they have to do. So that's why this is a new job description. But then later in the agenda, you'll see where I'm going to recommend moving them from a level 2 to a level 3 pay. You'll see here in just a little bit. But that's the job description, and that's the one that stands out.
Any further questions or discussion? If not, can I have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Mr. Montgomery makes a motion, can I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Pruitt, second, all in favor? Action items for discussion, first reading on the SRO policy, Mr. Brewer.
So we'll have two readings of the SRO, probably we'll vote on it next month, at next month's meeting, but you've got the first reading. I know Ms. Hazlett, she's done a lot of work on this, she may want to chime in. A lot of this is taken, she's put together, but she's taken some of it from KSBA's recommended policy, but you want to add to that?
Yeah, we have a policy in place already, and so what was in red is the additions that we need to include in order for it to be, what we would need to have our own law enforcement agency. So this is what KSBA has recommended for us to use. And then the procedures that are included with that, the second part of that, that's something new. We don't have those procedures in place now because they're just related to us being our own agency. So we would need both of those, the policy and those procedures. So this is the first step in order for us to do, you know, how I talked about this as a multi-step process. We have to have this in place in order for us to be able to get our ORI number. So this is the next step in that process.
Questions?
So you said we had 3 applicants, sorry.
We're going to interview 3 of this.
I'm sorry, I didn't get 3, yes, 3 more.
So, the red line, is that, is it school-specific verbiage that was added, or what is the red line? In the policy, the red line, are those, that's the additions. The additions that were made to be more school-specific. Yes, okay. Just wanted to make sure I understood that.
Yes. So that's what, everything that's black is what's already in our policy, and the red stuff is the part they're adding.
Okay.
Now, that second one is all new, right? Is that what you said?
Anything, the second one is the procedures only, that has the AP1, so it's 02.3 AP1. You don't have that already. Those are procedures, and so those are all new.
Again, this is just a first reading, so we'll vote on it next.
Thank you.
Thank you, Esther. Action items for roll call vote. First up will be a salary schedule update. This is the change that we talked about just briefly.
Yeah, so anytime we have an instructional assistance position open, we have multiple applicants. When we have an opening for MSD instructional assistants, we went a whole school year now and had 0 applicants because the pay is the same and the responsibility is much greater. And of course, like I said, that third bullet on the job description speaks volumes of what they've got to deal with each and every day. So one thing I've noticed that districts are starting to do around the state of Kentucky, not all, but some of them, Fayette County, for instance, they are moving their pay scale up for that MSD instructional assistance. So when you look at it, I wrote it down here. So for instance, if you have 0 years experience, you would go from $12.77 to $13.37, so 60 cents difference. But if you've got 10 years experience, it's over $2 difference per hour I'm talking about. And then if you've got 32, which is the top of our pay scale, it's $3.50 difference per hour. So the longer you stay with that position, obviously the more you would make compared to an instructional assistant. So it's an incentive to, hey, you know, you're going to have a lot more duties than you would as an instructional assistant, but the pay is better. So, you know, hopefully that counters that and allows us to get some applicants for the any MSD IA position that we have open.
It's going to be a cost of approximately $16,000 this year to implement, if we implement it going January through the end of the year.
Which will come out of special education.
Yes, so we have 3 different pots of money for special education funds. We have the general fund portion that's allocated through the SEEP formula. Then we have IDEA, which is the bigger portion of federal funding. And And then we also receive Medicaid funding, Medicaid reimbursements on those Medicaid eligible students and the work that our staff does with those students.
Questions, discussion? If not, can I have a motion for approval?
Make a motion.
Mr. Montgomery makes the motion, may I have a second? Ms. Franceschi, second, roll call, sir.
District 1, Amber Franceschi.
Yes.
District 2, Larry Yeager.
Yes.
District 3, Billy Montgomery.
Yes.
District 4, Cliff Pruitt.
Yes.
District 5, Randy Phillips.
Yes. Next item, topographical survey.
So we've had a few surveys through the site, taking the site from the new elementary school. Now, the next step in the new elementary would be doing a total survey. And you can see that, the bids there. QK4 out of the 3 is at $11,000. Can you explain the difference between the base bid and alternate for them?
So back in June, we had issued an RFP for the survey, and we had it as 2 parts. So there was the base bid, which is basically just the boundary survey of the site, and that was needed to purchase the property. And then we also had the alternate price broken out, which is the topographic survey, which is not needed to buy the property, but it's needed for the actual project. So we had those 2 prices basically separated with each bid, and at the time, just the base bid was taken. And so that's what has already been done. That report has already been issued. It was part of the property acquisition, so that's done. But in order to move forward with the project, we have to have the topographic survey portion. And looking at the spreadsheet there, the QK4, first of all, they did it back in June. They still stand by their price, so it's still valid. They listed it at 8 weeks, and on the phone, they said they can do it in 6 weeks right now, so they can do it a little quicker than before. But to really get going on a project, we have to have the topographic information from the survey. Are there any questions about it?
Well, my question is, when we looked at this was, and we had looked at this already, that was the question I had, but I understand now what we have on it then.
So 6 weeks is in our time frame.
Well, just to get going is what she's saying, but right now, we looked at a timeline, and you can chime in if you want to on this, but the timeline, opening the new elementary, it could be completed in April or May, so we still got a couple months with weather that helps us.
Yeah, so you're talking the actual project design and construction. So it'd be about a year of design. So initially, it was first thoughts on project schedule. We would be going out to bid next January, February, with construction to start March of 24 and 2 years construction. And that allows enough time that if anything takes longer, rain, weather days, you're not saying let's end in July and then you don't have the time just in case anything happens. So that's what we're looking at, is about 1 year of design and 2 years of construction.
So the 2-week difference between QK4 and SME.
Right now, that's not a huge issue. We really want to have the survey for schematic design, and at the moment, we're in programming. So as far as the design sequence, you have programming, then you move into schematic design, then design development and construction documents. So with the 6 weeks, even if it takes them 8, I think we would be fine to have that during, concurrent with the programming phase. And then once we get into SDs, we really need that survey.
Okay, so your recommendation is QK4.
Yes, they're the cheapest on the list there.
Thanks.
Any discussion? So I need a motion for approval of QK4 for this project. So can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion for QK4.
All right, Mr. Pruitt makes the motion, second by Mr. Yeager. Roll call, sir.
So District 1, Amber Franceschi.
Yes.
District 2, Larry Yeager.
Yes.
District 3, Billy Montgomery.
Yes.
District 4, Cliff Pruitt.
Yes.
District 5, Randy Phillips.
Yes. Unpaid intermittent medical leave, Mr. Pruitt.
So this is under roll call simply because if we give an unpaid medical leave to an employee, then you all are voting to use general fund money or money from the schools to buy these substitute teachers while that teacher's out. So that's why that's under roll call, because there is money involved with a substitute teacher.
So net, it's no additional cost because the teacher is unpaid.
Well, it's probably saving money.
Okay, okay. That's what I wanted.
So the end date is to be determined. So if we approve it, is it we're approving any length of time?
Ms. Joyce, you want to?
Could you repeat that? Okay. What I'm seeing is that it says to end on to be determined. So if we approve it tonight, then are we approving it for any length of time?
You can make that decision. You can decide to approve it for, a couple months and then reconvene once the medical professional determines how long it will be. You can do it on a month-to-month basis.
So the way it is now, the medical professional will be the one that decides when they're
Fit for
determined, right?
Discussion on length of time?
I think we should go to the end of the school year and revisit it necessary.
It is an intermittent leave, so this person is going to try to work during this whole year as much as possible.
I see.
So, they may be well enough to come in on a Wednesday and a Thursday and then have a bad day on Monday.
I think that's good. I would agree.
So thank you for the discussion, that's good information. So, can I have a motion to approve for this pay to be through the end of the school year? Mr. Yeager makes a motion, can I have a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Montgomery, second, roll call, sir.
District 1, Amber Franceschi. District 2, Larry Yeager.
Yes.
District 3, Billy Montgomery.
Yes.
District 4, Cliff Pruitt.
Yes.
District 5, Randy Phillips.
Yes. Reconvene local planning committee.
So at that first meeting, one of the first well, it wasn't the first question I asked. I said, I don't want to spend a lot of time on because our district facility plan through our LPC, which you all voted on after the LPC came up with the district facility plan, was to, first option one would be first through fifth grade for 950 to 1,000 students. That would be over 100,000 square feet, and with soft cost and everything, you're looking around 470 to 480 is what, some of these schools are coming in at. Well, you times the math, that's 48 million, which is many, many millions over what we would like to spend on the elementary school, obviously. I mentioned the Bardstown Elementary School. They built one that size for 23 million. They bid it out a month before COVID hit. So that $23 million building they've got now is worth probably about 48 million, which shows you how much interest rates and cost have went up, and I mean building supplies and cost have went up since this last run, the last year or so. So that being said, I said I didn't want to waste all our time to design and do all this, and then all of a sudden hit a big, almost $50 million sticker on a school and say, well, we did all that for nothing. So to me, it makes sense we're aligned right now, elementary, intermediate, is 3rd through 5th in middle school, high school. So just keep that alignment. So I was going to ask you if you want to reconvene the LPC, send it back to the LPC. They have to have 2 meetings. Ask them if they would, because of this new interest rates going up, building costs going up at the same time, unlike anything we've ever seen, to look at building just exactly what we've got right now, which is a preschool through 2nd grade elementary school. So in doing that, they would approve that, then they would send it back to you all for approval, and then it would go to KDE. that's financially, because of the world we live in right now. You know, somebody asked in that meeting, is interest rates and building costs gonna come back down to what and building costs have almost, I mean, they may come down a little bit, but they've never, you think about houses and things, they've never come back down, you know, after they've doubled, anytime in our lifetime. So, they may come down a little bit, but I doubt a whole bunch, you know, a significant amount. So my recommendation would be reconvene the LPC, let them talk about doing our district facility plan, revamp it into a preschool through second grade, which is exactly how we're aligned now. And that way that school can move directly over to the new site.
I would ask them, yeah, I think when we get into the design phase of it and everything, and I'm fine with doing that, but, I would like for them to, personally, I would like for them to be sure that when they do the design, that they do a design thinking of that bigger one, maybe in the future, and designing this first, kind of thinking of it as a phase thing, first phase now, second phase later to get to where we originally wanted to get to. That's what I.
We had that discussion in that first meeting, and that's one thing we had talked about. And I said many years ago, when the high school here in Mercer County was being designed, the money was there for a 10 through 12th grade, but not 9 through 12th grade. So the money was there for 3 grades, but not 4. So they designed it, knowing that eventually they're going to, a couple of years down the road, they're going to have the money to do the freshman wing, and that's exactly what they did. So yeah, we talked about designing it so you could add an addition. You know, our intermediate is designed that way right now, where you can add on also. So yes, we did have that discussion already, and of course we've got 20 acres over there, so we've got, it's not like we're land locked, you know, land strapped, so we're in good shape land-wise and area-wise to do that.
The excavation part of it is the first part of it that you're going to have to think about that, you know, that thought, you know, is, you don't want to put it in a place that said, well, okay, now all we got is a hole here somewhere or something to add on to or whatever, but, you know, that's what I would hope we would make sure that we do. And never can tell, by the time we get through it, it may come down enough that we can say, well, let's just go ahead and put both phases in together. That's what I'd love to see.
Being optimistic.
Yeah.
Okay, any further questions or discussion?
I move we reconvene the LPC.
Okay, Mr. Yeager puts the motion on the floor to reconvene the LPC. Can I have a second? Ms. Franceschi, second. Roll call, sir.
District 1, Amber Franceschi.
Yes.
District 2, Larry Yeager.
Yes.
District 3, Bill Montgomery.
Yes.
District 4, Cliff Pruitt.
Yes.
District 5, Randy Phillips.
Yes. KMS bathroom renovation.
So you all got a couple documents there with the King Middle School bathroom renovation. That was one thing that was put on our ESSER plan a couple years ago. And there's 2 different documents there, one of which I spent an hour or so the other day with the architects walking around looking at our 5 bathrooms at King Middle School. We've got 2 boys' bathrooms, and then we've got 3 girl bathrooms, 2 of which are used at our ball games, you know, down by the gym, near our 6th grade wings, and then the other 3 are on the other end by the library, towards the library. But those they used to be new, now they're old, and, you know, they need to be renovated. And so those 2 documents you got there, one is for $600,000. That does not include new sinks and new toilets, correct, in your rooms? Right. The 1.1 includes all new everything. That also includes new drop ceilings, paint, tile work. The plumbing is the main, when you got to move lines and Plumbing is where a lot of your expense is, most of your expense is in the plumbing parts. Also, one of my goals is to get the dishwasher at King Middle School in the kitchen. The drain line is either collapsed or it's getting smaller and smaller over the years, but they haven't had the dishwasher be able to use that in many years, so they've had to hand wash things. So that includes in that. Now they've got directional drilling where they've got $1 million piece of equipment. They can start out by the road, and then come underneath, and then come right up there on a quarter. If you put a quarter in the middle of the kitchen there, where they need to come up to put a new drain line to have all that nice new drain line. So that does include that new sewer line going out from the road to that, to get our dishwasher up and running at King Middle School as well. So that's, like I said, that was already budgeted in the ESSER plan a while back. But that's the difference in the two. So now the 1.1 is everything. So I was talking to Beth, and there are ways like we could save money, like if you wanted to just we may go through there and there'll be, one bathroom that has all sinks that are really good, or toilets or whatever, so we could keep those. So we don't have to do all of them. We could put in the really nice sinks and urinals and the toilets in the two that are used for the public for the ball games down by the gym, and then look at the sinks and so forth in the other ones, and maybe not have to do that. So we may be able to split, is what I'm saying. It's not all or none. You're either doing all of the 600,000 or the 1.1. There is a way to get under that, but that 1.1 is doing everything. And this is, if you do use $1 of any grant money, ESSER money, whatever, you're always under the Davis-Bacon Act prevailing wage for the whole entire project. So that ups the cost a certain percentage, which makes the 20 to 30% more from what the people I talk to. It increases.
So tell me again what we get for without the toilet, new toilets and.
Beth, you want? I'm gonna bring the expert.
So the option one, which is the streamlined one, that one includes all new toilet stalls, ceilings, new floor, flake epoxy, painting, and new wall tile at basically the first wall that you see when you walk into each restroom. So it's not wall tile throughout, it's just like a major wall tile. New toilet accessories, replacing the glass block with new windows, obscured windows, wall graphics, and then MEP, which would be new lighting, and then at the sinks, new faucets, but not new fixtures. So the toilets, the urinals, and the sinks would remain just new faucets on the sinks, and that's the option one. Option two is everything plus brand new plumbing fixtures throughout. So it would be floor to ceiling new.
So option one, we're just getting
Finishes, yeah, basically finishes and reusing and salvaging. We do have a field verification site visit next week that both MEP and architecture are going to look at every single one of them and determine what is in good shape versus what is, needing to be replaced. But the option one would be assuming that all of them are good to go to be salvaged, just replacing faucets.
And option one does not include the sewer work.
It does,
Oh,
yeah,
it does.
sorry, I didn't mention that, yeah. So the sewer work at the kitchen is included with that. Both.
In either one.
Yeah.
So option one doesn't include any jackhammering, putting in new sewer lines and bathrooms or?
Not for replacing fixtures, so it would be just what you got in there right now, keeping it, and then all the finishes, paint, ceiling tile, and flooring.
The way I'm hearing it, the only difference in the two options, or the big difference in the two options is that in number two, we're replacing all fixtures, where number one, we're not replacing any of them.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna ask, how many of the stalls are are marked off, like you can't use them?
Well, we're gonna look at that next,
Yeah, we'll look at that this coming week,
next Wednesday,
yeah,
right?
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
What's the $31,000 difference in architect fee?
That's based on the total fee of the construction cost. So it's just whatever your construction cost is, there's a KDE fee schedule, and you just multiply that times the construction cost.
So we have to pay $30,000 more even though it's the same thing?
Well, if you're replacing fixtures, then that would be specified, and it'd be on the plumbing engineer to do that.
But architecturally, it would be.
Yeah, from an architecture and interiors perspective, either way, for our architectural side, it'd be the same, but our mechanical and plumbing and electrical engineering would have more. The other thing with that, certain sinks have electrical, like if it has sensors on it, we would have to probably run power. He's gonna look Tuesday to see if there is power there. If not, that would be additional for a new sink, like with sensors versus a manual faucet.
So the engineering fee is where
Yeah.
you feel like it would be.
Yeah, it wouldn't be architecturally with finishes, it'd be on the MEP side.
So, I guess my question is, and I don't wanna be a pain about it, but I wish that this was itemized differently. Because these look almost identical, these forms. The money is different, but it doesn't specify, even in the description section, that has the same descriptions. It says, shall include new plumbing fixtures and finishes in student restrooms throughout the school. Renovation will also include a new sanitary line for the dishwasher and kitchen, and that's what both forms say.
Yeah, the option one would actually not be new plumbing fixtures, it would just be new faucets on the sink, and then existing toilets, urinals, and sinks remaining.
Is there a contract that will be signed?
Once it bids, there would be a contract with the lowest bid contractor, but right now this is just the BG1 form to get the project started.
So Mr. Bowie was talking about the wage and hour item at 25 to 30% more than budget price. Is there a way that we can put in the bids that we would like local contractors?
You can't do anything for a contractor in the specifications. You can have preferred manufacturers, but you can't have a
I'm
preferred
just thinking of
contractor.
like benefiting people in Mercer County. If
Yeah.
there's a wage and hour law for the state, it's not really going to do us any good. We're paying out more money and we're not really helping.
It would just be
the economy.
more interesting to local contractors. Like usually wherever a project's at, the interest is there locally, but in our specifications, we can't do anything. We can let local contractors know that the project's out to bid, but we can't have a preferred contractor listed because it's public bid, so anyone can bid on it. It's a public project.
But who wants to bid on it, they can bid. If someone local wants to bid on it, they
Yes,
can bid.
it's open for anyone who bids.
Ms. Meyer, why don't you comment on the funding that we've been talking to Katie?
As far as ESSER goes, on option one, the only portion that would qualify for ESSER would be the drain line to the dishwasher for sanitizing purposes. The other ones are just finishes, but if you're doing an entire renovation of the restroom facilities with new urinals and fixtures and toilets and that kind of thing, it really is, we're basically sanitizing the entire restroom at that point. We're spreading things out for social distancing purposes, so that would cut down on any kind of illnesses at that point, putting all new in the bathrooms at that point in time.
Are you saying that just because the auditor's sitting behind you?
Well, I'm sure glad that she stayed, so when I go to explain it to her later, she heard it firsthand right off the bat. Because normally I find myself, she asks me in like June, she's like, okay, how did that apply for this or that or whatever like that. So she's hearing it firsthand now, so I'll just have to say, remember back at the board meeting you were at? But no, really, the whole point of ESSER funds, you have to relay it back to responding to or preventing the spread of COVID or any other illnesses. And then there can be a budget impact piece that they also look at. So for us to do this out of our general fund, obviously, if we can save the funds in our general fund, that opens us up for programming for our students in years to come, where ESSER has a deadline also. So there are two kind of impacts there. So they both meet that financial impact, but really the only portion that would actually qualify and meet the qualifications for ESSER funding would be the dishwasher portion, the drainage line for it, for sanitizing purposes, because obviously the temperatures the dishwashers can get to and sanitizing those dishes and all of the pans and everything that they utilize in the kitchen is much greater than what they're doing in a 3-bay sink at this point in time. But then on the other portion, if the entire bathroom is completely renovated, new toilets, new sinks, new fixtures, new everything, that is giving us an opportunity to spread things out a little bit more, put new items in there that don't have however many years of germs on them that have been there since the beginning of time.
You would recommend doing
If you're wanting to utilize ESSER funds for the entire project, yes. And then that's the thing, even if you only do option one, only the portion, it's the prevailing wage for the entire project, regardless of your funding source at that point. So then you're overinflating what you would pay out of your general fund for that portion when you're really touching such a small portion that's, well, I don't know how small it is, maybe you can itemize it, but it's not going to be, even if it's half and half, you're overinflating what you would pay if you were just going to do that out of your general fund right out the gate.
So my main concern is, if we're gonna spend this much money, what, are we gonna get a good bang for our buck? I mean, are we gonna notice the huge difference, what we got now versus what?
They'll walk in the bathrooms at the middle school. Yes, I can tell you, I don't like using the restroom in those restrooms. They are in horrible shape. They are really not sanitary, I don't feel like. And I have a kid going there next year, so,
Well, I used those bathrooms in 7th grade. And
yes, and they haven't improved any since then. I mean, we have sinks literally down to the wall as much as our maintenance people could get them back on the wall. So, I mean, you're talking, part of it's safety, obviously the reduction of germs, illnesses, that kind of thing by spreading out new fixtures, that kind of thing. I mean, there's no telling what's living in the surfaces currently.
I used those bathrooms when I was in high school. You know what the difference was then of me coming to a bathroom there and me going home and going out in the outhouse out there was the difference. So I was tickled to death then, but that was 30 years ago.
So Amber asked a question on the time limit on the ESSER funds. So ARP ESSER funds go fully through September 30th of 2024. So we're talking all next school year we have access to them, and then through September 30th of the following school year. So we do have a time limit on those funds, and this would, and so that's part of your argument. That's what you talked to KDE about. That's what, I feel like it's very justifiable in that response as well. It's able to free us up cash in our general fund in order to use for programming for our students in a longer time frame than what ESSER is allowing.
Can we do this in phases? I mean, if we do the 2 bathrooms in the foyer area, and then if something comes along where we're like, oh, we need ESSER funds over here, benefit much more than finishing this project.
That's more probably a question for the architect than me, but I would think that it's going to be more expensive in the long run because you're calling people back more than once and you may not get the same bid the second time around. I mean, things are increasing every time we turn around, so, I mean, that's just, what I'm seeing.
If you want to have it done next summer, which is what I understand that that's the goal, to have it done over the summer, it would have to be in March. So it would have to be done really soon. And if you do it in phases, then you would probably be looking at the next summer. With students using those restrooms, it would not be an ideal project to happen during the school year. So the summer time for construction is best. If it was phased and a contractor has to hold their price for the next summer, that's going to inflate the cost more. The other thing would be to break it into smaller projects, so do like just 2 restrooms this year, come back next year and do another project for the following summer. But usually the more scope that you can put into a project, the better the cost. Like the tinier the project, usually the higher it's just like per square foot. That's just kind of, the bigger the project, the lower the cost per square foot, not always, but it just helps to have more scope, makes it a more desirable project versus something really small.
One thing I asked her the other day when we looked at King Middle School was, can we get this completed in one summer with 5 big, community restrooms? And she asked when school was out, and I said May 16th, and she said as long as we get there May 17th, and they had the whole summer to do that. But that's what I was going to say, that is another option, is to table it for a year, because you can only do this type of project with kids in the building. When kids are out of the building, we can't do it when they're in the building. So it would either have to be this coming summer or the next summer.
The next summer could become an issue on the funding side, because if there's a delay in anything, invoicing, anything like that goes past that September 30th, then we are on the line for those bills out of general fund at that portion, if we cannot utilize ESSER funding any longer.
I know you're probably you have a pretty financial brain, so you might be able to stuff this out, but what does it leave our ESSER after the project? What does the ESSER look like after?
So we just actually met a few weeks ago, because we meet every basically quarter to kind of go through things. Myself and Jennifer Hatton, our federal grants coordinator, look at that regularly to make sure that we're on track. If we need to make any changes to the plan. The state did call for anything to be changed and modified on the plan back in October, so we did that by the end of October. And at that point in time, we still have about 1.6 million that we have budgeted out, but not specific. But we may say, oh, well, this is going to go for technology needs. This is going to go for cleaning supplies for the buildings. This is going to go for nursing supplies, those types of things. So you still have funds sitting there that, if you had something come up that you're like, oh, we really want $20,000 for this, we really probably already have a budgeted line item for that.
So you think we'll have some reserves? If we did this project, we would still have reserves?
Mm-hmm. Because you have to think, we did have the 3 levels of ESSER in year funding. So you had your ESSER 1 in year that happened, back as the pandemic happened. And so that has been utilized, it's fully gone. Then we had ESSER 2 that also had the set-aside component from the state, which was another portion of funds. So we still have funds sitting there. We still have funds sitting in ARP ESSER as well. And, a large amount of funds where we're going to have to make strategic decisions and make sure that we are, and we, like I said, we do that anyway, but my eyes start switching when I talk about, next year is basically it, and trying to make sure, because ESSER 2 actually goes through September 30th, 2023. So it has to be spent out by that point in time. So that's always the thing on any kind of grant money. Number one, they're restricted to whatever the grant is written for, or whatever the state or federal government has given you the funds for. So you always have to map it back to what those uses for those funds are, and then they always have a time limit, where general fund can roll over every year and be used, in accordance with law and board policy, as long as it's available sitting there, you can utilize it on really anything, where some of these other funds are more restricted. And the time component.
So, I'm sorry, but I still have another question. So, you said that the sanitary line for the dishwasher is what would qualify for ESSER funds, is that right?
It would under the option one, because, currently they're washing those dishes and stuff in the kitchen in a 3-bay sink, which is still sanitary, but it's more sanitary to have a dishwasher that gets up to whatever degree that gets up to.
So will it only cover that portion of the project, or?
It will on option one. That's what ESSER would only be able to utilize in that portion of that project. Then we would have to pick up general fund, I would think, on option one for the remainder of the project.
But not the
other one, you're replacing everything. You're talking spacing out items,
So we
new
can also get that
stalls.
covered on ESSER too?
Yeah.
I see, okay. Sorry, I'm done.
Well, the big thing to me here is that the option one, everything except the sewer line comes out of general fund. Option two, everything comes out of ESSER funds. We don't have to touch general fund money, right? That's where it comes down to me. We either pay for some of this, pay for most of the project out of general fund money, or we get it all paid for through ESSER funds.
Which frees up general fund money for programming for students.
Right.
That's the way you have to look at it. That's why, anytime I talk with KDE about anything that we're doing in ESSER funding, because we have to put it to them, anytime we're spending anything over $5,000 on anything that's not staffing related, we have to ask KDE for specific approval for those types of things. And so you have to justify. And so if you sit there and you look at it, you're like, I really can't justify this, for that. I can't tell you it's going to be in response to anything. And that's the hard part, because we are removed from the really heightened part of the pandemic and COVID. We're returning to as normal as we have been in the last 3 years. It's hard now sometimes to tie those things back, but this is a real clear cut. That's why it was in the plan from the get-go, was to be able to spread some of those bathrooms out, do some of the socially distanced part of it, the sanitizing portion of it, the fact that everything is new. The germs can't be spread as easily if you have brand new facilities as opposed to an aging facility. And we can't, unfortunately, do a huge renovation of that entire building, but we can do certain areas that definitely have more of an influx of germs and that kind of thing.
You feel pretty confident that it'll be approved? That's what it was.
I hope so. I know other districts that have had their projects that are very similar approved, so
We've seen most every project go through approved.
That's what I say, as long as you can justify it back to the whole reason that the federal government released the funds to the state government to put towards us, and that's what, Mr. Brewer can probably attest, there have been times he's walked in my office and be like, can't we use ESSER funds for that? I'm like, no. And this is why, and because some of the stuff, and we have other districts that are utilizing ESSER funds for other things, but, we're trying to utilize the funds the way that they were intended to be utilized, but in the smartest way we can to maximize our general fund budget to provide the programming that we need for our students and the staffing we need for our students.
How about the bathrooms in the gym? Larry can attest to,
You mean the dressing rooms?
yeah, there's bathrooms in there.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
That's not in the scope, just the 5.
The public restrooms.
Yeah, so there's 2 by the gym, which are public restrooms, and then 3 down the classroom court.
Not what they use for gym class.
No.
Those aren't as heavily used as the other restrooms in the hallways where the students, where all the wings are and that kind of thing. I'm sure they're used, I'm saying they're not, but.
Thank you for talking me through that for sure, because I had a lot of questions about it, but personally, I think it sounds like a good idea that ESSER funds are use it or lose it, and our kids could use better bathrooms. So,
Give them a general public.
in the general.
That building's not going away, you know what I'm saying, so we're gonna
Right.
have to.
It'll be well.
Any further discussion? Would someone like to make a motion on which resolution line they'd like to go with?
Is it called 1.2? Somebody remind me.
G1, option 2.
I'll make a motion that we use option 2.
Okay, Mr. Montgomery puts a motion on the floor to take BG1 option 2. Can I have a second?
I second.
Mr. Yeager, second. Roll call, sir.
District 1, Amber Franceschi.
Yes.
District 2, Larry Yeager.
Yes.
District 3, Billy Montgomery.
Yes.
District 4, Cliff Pruitt.
Yes.
District 5, Randy Phillips.
Yes. Okay, final action item, roll call vote, restaurant for Canvas bathroom.
So now that we've opened up a BG1, we'll need an architect for this project. So my recommendation is to use Ross Tarrant Architect firm for this project.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Ms. Franceschi makes a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Montgomery, second. Roll call, sir.
District 1, Amber Franceschi.
Yes.
District 2, Larry Yeager.
Yes.
District 3, Billy Montgomery.
Yes.
District 4, Cliff Pruitt.
Yes.
District 5, Randy Phillips.
Yes. If no further items for discussion, can I have a motion for adjournment?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Montgomery makes a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Pruitt, second. All in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.